The Interstellar Academy of Xenobiological Studies was not the sort of place where people expected noise. Corridors hummed with the low pulse of environmental systems. Footsteps sank into the anti-static gel carpeting without sound. Voices never rose above a quiet murmur, respectful of the dozens of alien species with sensitive hearing. Even in the cafeteria, food dispensers gave off a faint purr rather than a beep. That was why the sound hit like an explosion. A sharp thud, followed by the unmistakable echo of flesh against bulkhead. Every head in the gymnasium turned. A friendly referee, a floating cluster of proboscis-like appendages and jelly sacks, halted the zero-G rugby game with a long, worried trill. The players froze midair, their bodies suspended in artificial microgravity, as they looked at the crumpled figure drifting crookedly in the center of the field. Cadet Reynolds, the human. He wasn't screaming, but his jaw was locked tight and his face was pale, lips pressed thin against pain. One leg bent at an angle that was very wrong. "Not good," muttered a Chalari medic, her 4 eyes narrowing as she shoved off a wall, a medpack clutched in her long fingers. She caught Reynolds gently and scanned him with a portable analyzer. "Fracture confirmed, tibia, hairline, but clean, ligament strain, no rupture." Reynolds gave a sharp breath through clenched teeth. "That's bad, right?" "It could be worse." Fex, the Chalari medic, kept her voice steady. "No internal bleeding, no punctured skin, but you are grounded for 6 weeks minimum." Around them, the alien cadets murmured. Humans were supposed to be soft. Too soft. The only human cadet this term had already earned a reputation. Fragile, slow, too cautious in a place full of claws, chitin, scales, and regenerative tissue. Now he was floating broken in front of them all. "Why play at all?" muttered a Charax cadet, his eye stalks twitching. "Human bones shatter like dry branches." The medic snapped her cast into place, a lightweight composite brace for non-regenerative species. Reynolds groaned, sweat trickling across his forehead. He tried to shift, failed, and laughed bitterly. "Guess I'll sit out practice," he muttered. But the silence that followed was heavy, the kind that left an impression. The Parnell cadet who had tackled him, a 10-limbed creature with muscles like coiled steel, offered a clumsy apology. Reynolds just nodded faintly as the med pod carried him away. The medbay was bright, sterile, painted in calming shades of green. The walls pulsed faintly with the rhythms of atmospheric processors. Reynolds lay propped on a cushioned berth, his leg elevated, locked in a composite brace. Fex adjusted a console. "We'll support the natural healing process with supplements. No regeneration gel, your biology doesn't respond to it." "Why not?" Reynolds asked, voice strained but curious. "You heal chemically, not electrobiologically. Too slow, too messy." Reynolds gave a short laugh. "Story of my life." That evening, a nutritional packet arrived. Thin, direct, clinical. Recovery protocol, high protein intake. Animal-derived sources preferred. Calcium supplements mandatory. Hydration essential. Optional, bone marrow consumption beneficial. At the bottom was a handwritten note from Dr. Lorsch, the Academy's human physiologist. "You're going to hate this, but it will help. Real bones if you can get them. Roasted. Get that marrow." Reynolds stared at the note, then at his reflection in the medbay's polished wall panel. "Well, Doc," he muttered dryly, "guess it's time to weird everyone out." By the next morning, he hobbled on a pair of crutches, old-fashioned, archaic, but insisted upon by Lorsch. "Humans need weight-bearing stress," the doctor had said. "Floating harnesses won't cut it." The cafeteria buzzed with the quiet murmur of 100 different tongues. Cadets of every size and shape clustered in groups, their trays filled with nutrient blocks, algae stews, or protein gels. The room dipped into silence as Reynolds entered. He limped across the floor, each step measured, carrying an insulated bag slung over one shoulder. His usual seat waited in the corner, near his alien acquaintances, Torth, a massive Gelari who ate raw fungus like candy, and the Amory twins, bioluminescent and jittery. "You should not be here," Torth rumbled, his deep voice vibrating through his chest. "Doctor said rest, didn't say isolation," Reynolds grunted as he lowered himself carefully onto the bench. Torth tilted his massive head. "I meant the cafeteria. It provokes trauma in the injured." "Then I'm in the right place." Slowly, deliberately, Reynolds unzipped the insulated bag. Inside, roasted beef bones, neatly halved, still steaming faintly. The Amory twins froze. Torth leaned forward, nostrils flaring. Reynolds set one bone on the table, picked up a spoon, and with a practiced movement, cracked it open against the edge of the bench. Crack! The sound echoed, sharp and organic. The cafeteria froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. 100 eyes, compound, slit pupil, multifaceted, turned toward him. Reynolds didn't flinch. He dipped the spoon into the golden smear of marrow, lifted it, and ate. Calcium and protein, he said evenly. Doctor's orders. A student gagged 3 tables away. Someone whispered, horrified, "Is that from his own body?" Reynolds swallowed. What no, cow domesticated grazer, very dead. The Amory twins went pale, their bioluminescence flickering nervously. Self-cannibalism, one muttered. It's not a ritual, Reynolds sighed, cracking another bone. It's lunch. He ate another spoonful, calm and unshaken, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. A silence heavier than gravity pressed over the cafeteria. Students stared, alien faces unreadable, minds racing to process the sight of a supposedly soft-bodied human cracking bones like a predator. And then, from somewhere near the food dispensers, a first-year Gandhari cadet fainted straight into their pudding tray. The echo of the marrow crack lingered, the stares sharpened. Reynolds looked up, genuinely confused. What? He asked. You guys eat live crickets sometimes. No one replied. The silence was absolute. By mid-afternoon, the whispers had spread. The cafeteria had returned to its usual rhythm, utensils scraping, translators humming, alien cadets comparing nutrient charts, but the corner table remained empty. Reynolds had excused himself quietly after the incident, hobbling on crutches with his insulated bag, leaving behind 5 hollowed-out femurs like strange trophies. The bones hadn't been cleared. Nobody wanted to touch them. The Amory twins had fled, pale and trembling. Torth remained seated, staring at the greasy remnants. He sniffed once, uncertain whether to be impressed or disturbed. Calcium and protein, he muttered, echoing Reynolds. By evening, the clip had gone viral. Security drones hovered in every public hub of the academy, their optics always watching. Someone, no one admitted who, had pulled the feed from the cafeteria surveillance and clipped the exact moment. Cadet Reynolds, cracking a femur bone with bare hands, spooning marrow and saying calmly, "Doctor's orders, calcium and protein." The clip spread across the shared comms board. Tags multiplied. Species behavior, unexpected human dietary methods. Self-cannibalism ritual. Herbivore deception unmasked. 12,000 views in 3 hours. By sundown, 25,000. Some captions misinterpreted completely. Human performs ancestral bone ritual. Omnivore ruse confirmed. Soft herbivore classification no longer sustainable. At least 3 xenophysiologists requested immediate review of the human file. Reynolds sat in his dorm, leg elevated, a tray of broth and supplements beside him. The walls glowed faintly with the green calming light the designers had chosen for cross-species relaxation. It only gave him a headache. He scrolled through the comms board on his tablet. The comments were a mix of awe, disgust, and fascination. Did you see the way he cracked it, like breaking a mineral rod? So they drink marrow instead of regeneration gel. This is horrifying, I want to try it. Humans lied about being herbivores, typical predator trick. Reynolds groaned and tossed the tablet onto the bed. Great, famous at last. There was a knock at the door. It was Torth, the Jelari. The alien's massive frame filled the doorway, his wide shoulders hunched awkwardly. His voice was low and rumbling. You disturbed them. Did I? Reynolds balanced on his crutch, shifting uncomfortably. I thought I was just having lunch. They believe you performed a ritual. Reynolds gave a bitter laugh. Figures, I break a leg, I eat marrow, and suddenly I'm a cult leader. Torth stepped closer, his heavy footsteps muffled by the gel flooring. He stared at the insulated thermos on Reynolds' desk, labeled in human script. Bone broth, simmered 12 HRS. From the insides of bones, Torth said slowly. Marrow, it's not that strange. My species just doesn't regrow bones overnight like yours. We help them heal with nutrients. I once consumed a fermented meat brick prepared by a Norgali, Torth rumbled. It screamed when exposed to air. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. And I'm the one upsetting lunchrooms. Torth tilted his head, his broad jaw twitching. You are labeled a herbivore. That is what the Academy teaches. Reynolds gave a tired smile. We're omnivores, always have been. You just don't believe it because I don't have claws or a jaw hinge that clicks. Torth was silent for a long moment. Then almost reluctantly he asked, does it help, the marrow? Reynolds tapped his cast. 6 weeks minimum, maybe more, but yeah, it helps. By the next morning, the whispers had grown louder. New signs were posted in the cafeteria. Notice, all students must label consumables clearly if consumed in communal areas. Species sensitivity protocols apply. No unapproved bone cracking in shared spaces. Interstellar Academy Ethics Board. Someone had stuck a post-it underneath, a crude doodle of a femur wearing sunglasses. Reynolds sighed as he passed the sign. A meme already, fantastic. Inside, the cafeteria was quieter than usual. Students glanced at him, then quickly looked away. The stares were no longer just curiosity, they carried something sharper. Wariness. A trace of respect, maybe. Torth sat at their usual table, his bowl of raw fungus replaced with something that looked suspiciously like vegetable puree. An unopened container sat beside it. You're early, Reynolds said, lowering himself carefully onto the bench. I wanted to avoid the crowd, Torth replied. Also, I brought something. He slid the container across the table. Reynolds popped it open and blinked. You made lentils. They were not difficult, Torth said stiffly. Boil, stir, season. I used no animal product. I believe this is called vegetarian style. Reynolds stared, then laughed softly. Did you just say vegetarian? It was written on the package. Good, next you'll be moralizing about quinoa. Torth made a low rumble that might have been a laugh. Behind them, someone whispered, he's doing it again. Reynolds ignored it and cracked open another roasted bone. Crack. The sound echoed, but this time no one fainted. Later that week, Reynolds was summoned. The request came from Dr. Lorsch, the Academy's human physiologist. The seminar on comparative bone regeneration was supposed to be for postgrads and xenomed researchers. But the lecture hall was packed wall to wall, cadets squeezed into back rows, whispering and passing notes. Dr. Lorsch clicked through slides, skeletal density variations, regenerative times, osteoblast activity across species. Then the slide changed. Reynolds froze. It was his face. Captured mid-spoonful, Marrow dripping, staring straight into the camera. The room erupted in murmurs. Cadet Reynolds, Dr. Lorsch said dryly, not even glancing back. Would you care to comment on your recovery process? Reynolds swallowed. Pains down, bones stabilizing, nutrient absorption in line with projections. Doctor's orders remain unchanged. Eat, rest, repeat. A hand shot up from the back, a young, friendly cadet with shimmering tendrils. Is it true you consume bones as a remedy? Reynolds hesitated, then shrugged. Technically, no, we don't normally, but I broke a leg. I'll take all the help I can get. Another student leaned forward. Is it ritualistic or biologically effective? Reynolds gestured with both hands. Same stuff our bodies make when healing bones. I'm just skipping the middleman. Laughter rippled through the room, but there was also a strange edge to it. Interest, respect. Dr. Lorsch gave the faintest of nods. Well said, now let us continue. That evening, Torth appeared at Reynolds' door again. This time he held a notepad, looking faintly embarrassed. I want the lentil recipe, he muttered. Reynolds stepped aside with a smile. You're ready. I am not, Torth grumbled, but the universe demands it. The summons came at dawn. Reynolds was jolted awake by a sharp tone from his terminal. The message header glowed in bold red. Notice, appearance required. Species Classification Review Committee. Subfloor 4, Bureaucratic Wing, 900 hours. He rubbed his face, groaned, and muttered, Fantastic, now I'm a case study. By the time he crutched his way into Subfloor 4, he regretted every step. The bureaucratic wing of the Academy was sterile to the point of cruelty. No windows, no color, just white walls that seemed to hum with judgment. Even the cleaning drones wore visors as though ashamed to be caught here. A mechanical chime announced his arrival. The door hissed open. The room was long, featureless, dominated by a single table. 6 committee representatives hovered in low chairs, each with a console glowing before them. Their expressions ranged from skeptical to deeply uncomfortable. At the far end sat the chair, a Vorton cylindrical body wrapped in layered scales, larynx vibrating in 2 octaves at once. "Cadet Reynolds," the Vorton said, "please sit carefully." Reynolds lowered himself into the lone chair under the blinding spotlight. The cast on his legs squeaked against the floor. "Do you know why you are here?" asked a tall Mavari, her elongated head ridged with bioluminescent lines. Reynolds shrugged, "Because I had lunch." A ripple of disapproval passed through the room. The Charax representative, all 7 feet of armored chitin, leaned forward, mandibles clacking. "Because you disturbed the equilibrium of the academy." Reynolds raised his eyebrows, with a spoon. The Vorton tapped its console. "Multiple eyewitnesses, as well as a widely circulated video, indicate that you consumed animal bone marrow in public following a skeletal injury. Is this a cultural ritual?" "No," Reynolds said firmly. "It's nutrition. My doctor recommended it for healing." The Mavari's eyes flickered. "You were seen cracking the bone open with physical force." "Well, yeah," Reynolds said. "Marrow's inside, and I don't own a laser cutter." The Charax leaned closer. "Do humans commonly consume the interior of bones?" "Commonly, no. Occasionally. Sure, in soups, broth, roasted. Our ancestors didn't waste anything." "Cannibalism?" the Mavari demanded sharply. Reynolds choked. "No, not unless things go really sideways." A low hum of data exchange flickered across the committee's internal channel. Lights shifted faintly on their consoles. After several tense moments, the Vorton spoke again. "Pending further review, Homo sapiens will be reclassified, not herbivorous, not soft-bodied, but adaptive omnivores, generalist subclass." Reynolds blinked. "You're changing the species file over one lunch." The Charax made a gesture that translated roughly to worldview shattered. "You cracked a bone like a predator. You consumed what many consider forbidden nutrient. Yes, it has been noted." Reynolds exhaled slowly. "Glad I could help." The news spread instantly. The species database updated in real time. Alerts pinged across the network. Classification change: Homo sapiens, adaptive omnivore subclass, capable of processing dense animal substrates, marrow, organ tissue in recovery contexts. Avoid assumptions based on dentition. In the dormitory halls, whispers changed. Less mockery now, less condescension, more wariness. Some cadets avoided eye contact. Others watched him with new respect. The Omri twins, still pale from the cafeteria incident, slipped an anonymous note under Reynolds' door. "Vegetarian recipes attached for future group meals." Torth, meanwhile, went in the opposite direction. He went culinary. By the next week, he had perfected not only lentil stew, but chickpea flatbread and something dangerously close to earth hummus. "I still don't understand why humans eat seeds," Torth grumbled, handing Reynolds a covered dish. "Because they're crunchy, full of fiber, and don't scream when you open the jar," Reynolds said. Torth paused, then nodded. "Reasonable." But not everyone welcomed the change. The ethics board issued a new notice. Cultural exchange directive. Sharing of meals between species encouraged within nutritional safety protocols. Unexpected dietary practices must be accompanied by explanation, not apology. Beneath the official text, someone had scrawled, "Herbivore frauds will answer." The next morning, Reynolds found his door scratched with a crude symbol, a broken bone drawn in black ink. He stared at it for a long moment. Not everyone was ready to see humans as predators. Weeks passed, his bone healed slowly, stubbornly. Dr. Lorsch scanned it on the 3rd week and nodded. "Callus formation looks good. Micro-movement in range, another 3 weeks minimum." Reynolds groaned. "I feel like I'm walking on a broomstick." "You're improving our understanding of your species," Lorsch said. "Your tolerance for pain, your dietary boldness, they're noted." "Doc," Reynolds muttered, "I just ate a thing that was inside another thing. That's not bold. That's Tuesday on Earth." Lorsch laughed. The shift in perception crystallized during the weekly open seminar in the rotunda. Reynolds sat beside a nervous Gandhari cadet, the same one who had fainted during the Marrow incident. The Gandhari gripped a notepad tightly. "I read your updated profile," the alien said, voice trembling. "I misjudged your species." "Most do," Reynolds said lightly. "I thought you were passive, dependent on soft greens, sugar waters." Reynolds smirked. "We like sugar water, sure, but we're full of surprises." The Gandhari swallowed. "Would you share a human lentil recipe?" Reynolds blinked. "You want the stew or the spicy version?" "I will sample both, for cultural understanding." Reynolds grinned, "For science." That night the dorm kitchen filled with the scent of cumin and simmering vegetables. Students drifted in, curious, noses twitching. One asked nervously, "Does it contain bone traces?" "Nope," Reynolds said, "just legumes." "What's a legume?" another asked. "Basically a protein pod that doesn't judge you for being vegetarian." Laughter broke the tension. They stayed, ate, and for once no one fainted. But beneath the laughter, tensions stirred. Not everyone wanted humanity reclassified. Not everyone wanted a soft herbivore turned omnivore predator in their midst. Rumors circulated that humans were hiding more, that Marrow was only the beginning, that Earth's history was drenched in blood, its species forged in predation. Whispers grew sharp enough to cut. And then one night, Reynolds returned to his dorm to find the door forced open. His crutches lay snapped in two across the floor. His insulated thermos, the one labeled bone broth, simmered 12 HRS, had been spilled across his bed. On the wall, written in dark, sticky nutrient paste, were 3 words in rough galactic standard. "Predators not welcome." Reynolds didn't move. He stood in the doorway, one crutch under his arm, staring at the words smeared across his dorm wall. "Predators not welcome." The nutrient paste dripped slowly down the surface, leaving streaks that smelled faintly of fermented algae. His thermos lay cracked open on the bed, broth soaking into the sheets. The crutches he wasn't using, spares, just in case, had been snapped in half and tossed aside like broken sticks. Behind him, the corridor was quiet, too quiet. He could feel the weight of eyes on him, though he saw no one. Reynolds exhaled slowly, tightened his grip on the crutch, and stepped inside. His leg throbbed. His head pounded. He resisted the urge to shout. Whoever did this wanted a reaction. Instead, he muttered under his breath, "Guess someone doesn't like soup." The news spread by morning. Not officially, of course. The ethics board didn't issue notices about vandalism. But dorm gossip was faster than any comms network. By breakfast, half the academy had heard that Reynolds' room had been trashed, his food destroyed, and his species branded as predators. Some cadets avoided him in the cafeteria line. Others whispered openly, eye stalks twitching, mandibles clicking. The Omri twins wouldn't meet his gaze. Torth, however, was furious. "This is cowardice," the Jalari rumbled, slamming a massive hand onto the table hard enough to make cutlery jump. "You are one cadet. They hide in shadows." "Yeah, well," Reynolds muttered, poking at his tray. "Shadows are safer when you've got a busted leg." "You should report this." Reynolds snorted. "And what? Get a sternly worded memo. They'll write another rule, no vandalizing human dorms before curfew." Torth leaned in, his heavy brow lowering. "You joke because you are afraid." Reynolds met his gaze. "You're damn right I'm afraid. My bone takes 6 weeks to heal, yours takes 6 hours, that's the difference." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Torth reached into his pack and placed something on the table. A small data chip. "What's this?" Reynolds asked. "Footage," Torth said. "From the corridor outside your dorm, I acquired it." Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "Acquired?" "The cleaning drones see everything." That night, they watched the footage together in Torth's quarters. The video feed was grainy but clear enough, 3 figures, cloaked in dorm-issue robes, moving quickly. One carried a pouch of nutrient paste. Another snapped the spare crutches over their knee with casual strength. The third stood lookout, glancing nervously down the hall. Their faces were hidden, but their body language gave them away. "Charax," Reynolds muttered, pointing at the lookout's angular posture. "Definitely Charax, the way the head twitches." Torth grunted, "The other two." Could be anyone, Omri, Fenchery, hard to tell. The video ended with the words smeared across the wall, glowing faintly in the low light. Then the 3 vanished into the shadows. Reynolds leaned back, exhaling. So it's official, I've got haters. You have enemies, Torth corrected. The next few days grew tense. Some cadets gave Reynolds respectful nods. Others hissed insults under their breath. His injury made him vulnerable, and everyone knew it. But something else was happening, too. Curiosity. Small groups of students began drifting toward his table. Some asked about Marrow, others about Earth food. A brave Gandhari cadet asked for the spicy lentil version and sat trembling through every bite, insisting afterward that it was a valuable cultural experience. Reynolds answered questions patiently, sometimes sarcastically, always honestly. He didn't try to impress anyone, he just told the truth. And truth, it turned out, was unsettling enough. One evening, Reynolds and Torth were leaving the cafeteria when they were confronted. 3 cadets blocked the corridor, a Charax with jagged mandibles, an Omri twin glowing faintly, and a tall Parnell whose 10 limbs twitched with anticipation. The Charax hissed, "You don't belong here, human. This place is for scholars, not predators." Reynolds tightened his grip on the crutch. "Funny, I thought it was for students. Last I checked, I'm still on the roster." The Parnell shifted, limbs flexing. "You disgust the academy, you unsettle the young, you shame the halls with your rituals." "Eating lunch is a ritual now?" Reynolds said dryly. "Good to know." The Omri twin glared, light flickering erratically. "You are soft, weak, but you pretend at strength. It is deception." Reynolds met their eyes, voice steady. "I never pretended to be anything. You're the ones who assumed I was soft." The Charax took a step forward, mandibles snapping. Torth shifted, placing himself between Reynolds and the trio, his massive frame blocking the corridor. His voice rumbled low. "Step back." The Parnell's limbs quivered, but they hesitated. Even 3 against 1, few wanted to test a Gelari in close quarters. "This isn't over," the Charax spat. Then, with a final glare, they retreated into the shadows. Reynolds let out a shaky breath. "Well, that was fun." Torth turned to him, eyes narrowing. "You joke again, but they will return." Reynolds gave a humorless smile. "Yeah, and next time they won't just break my crutches." The following week, the situation escalated. Rumors of a predator watch circulated. A faction of cadets believed the reclassification was dangerous, that humans were predators hiding in plain sight. Anonymous messages appeared on the comms board. "Expel the predator cadet." "Herbivore lies exposed." "Predators don't belong in peace academies." The ethics board tried to calm tensions, but their notices carried no weight. Fear moved faster than policy. One afternoon, Reynolds found himself cornered again, not by 3, but by 7. Different species united by suspicion. They didn't attack, not yet, but they circled him in the courtyard, whispers sharp, accusations louder. "Cannibal. Bone-eater. Predator." Reynolds stood his ground, leg aching, heart pounding. He wanted to shout, to explain, to fight. Instead, he said nothing. Silence, he realized, was louder. Finally, they dispersed, muttering, but the message was clear, the pressure was rising. That night, Reynolds sat with Torth in the dorm kitchen. A pot of stew simmered between them, steam carrying the scent of cumin and chickpeas. "They're not going to stop," Reynolds said quietly. "No," Torth agreed. "They are afraid." "Of me?" Reynolds laughed bitterly. "I'm hobbling around on a broomstick leg. I couldn't hurt anyone if I tried." "Not of you," Torth said. His deep voice rumbled with certainty. "Of what you represent." Reynolds frowned. "Which is?" "That humans are not what they believed. That you are more dangerous than you look. That you are harder to break." Reynolds stared into the stew, the reflection of the bubbling surface flickering in his tired eyes. "Dangerous," he muttered. "Great, just what I wanted on my student profile." The next day, the tension finally snapped. Reynolds was crossing the central atrium when an alarm shrieked. Lights flared red, students scattered, security drones swarmed. A blast rocked the far wall, panels buckled, smoke poured into the chamber. Through the haze, figures emerged, not students, not staff, but outsiders. Their forms were armored, movements sharp, purposeful. One voice barked in a harsh, mechanical tone. "Find the human." The atrium was chaos. Panels sparked and fell from the ceiling as smoke curled into the high rafters. Cadets scattered in every direction. some fleeing through side corridors, others frozen in panic, their translator units squealing warnings in 3 different languages. The armored intruders advanced through the haze. Their plating was matte black, their helmets featureless except for glowing slits of pale green. They moved with practiced precision, weapons raised, scanning the crowd. "Find the human," the lead figure barked again, its voice metallic, distorted. Reynolds' blood ran cold. He tightened his grip on his crutch, his injured leg trembling beneath the brace. He knew instantly that this wasn't just harassment from students, this was something bigger. Torth appeared at his side, massive frame pushing through the panicked crowd. His deep voice rumbled low and urgent. "They are here for you." "No kidding," Reynolds muttered, heart hammering. Security drones swooped in, beams of warning light cutting through the smoke. "Unauthorized incursion detected. Stand down, stand." The intruders opened fire. Blue bolts sliced through the air. One drone exploded in a shower of sparks. Another fell smoking to the ground. The rest scattered. Cadets screamed. Reynolds stumbled backward, coughing as the smoke thickened. His brain screamed at him to run, but his legs screamed louder. He could barely limp, let alone sprint. Torth grabbed him by the arm, dragging him toward a side corridor. "This way." Reynolds stumbled, nearly falling. "I can't outrun them." "Then we will outthink them." The side corridor was dim, lined with sealed classroom doors. Torth pushed Reynolds into an alcove, shielding him with his bulk as footsteps thundered closer. "Why me?" Reynolds gasped, chest heaving. "Why are they after me?" Torth's wide nostrils flared. "Because you changed the file." Reynolds blinked. "What?" "You are no longer soft," Torth said grimly. "Your reclassification unsettles more than students. Some factions rely on weakness. If humans are predators, they must erase you before others believe it." Reynolds swallowed hard. "So I broke a bone, ate lunch, and now I'm a political target." "Yes. Fantastic." The intruder's footsteps echoed closer. Torth's massive hands flexed. "Stay low," he rumbled. The first intruder turned the corner, weapon raised. Torth lunged. The Jalari hit like a freight train. His fist slammed into the intruder's chest plate, sending the figure crashing into the wall hard enough to dent the panel. Sparks burst from the weapon as it clattered to the floor. Reynolds stared wide-eyed. "Remind me never to play rugby with you." Torth didn't answer. He scooped up the fallen weapon and shoved it into Reynolds' hands. Reynolds froze. "I don't even know how to use this thing." "Point and trigger," Torth growled. "Adapt." Reynolds hesitated, then gritted his teeth and nodded. They moved deeper into the corridor, Reynolds limping, Torth covering him with the captured weapon. Behind them, more shouts echoed. The intruders were regrouping. Reynolds' mind raced. He was no soldier. He was a cadet who'd signed up to study xenobiology, not fight terrorists. But here he was, one leg broken, holding an alien rifle, being hunted through the academy. You adapt, he reminded himself. That's what humans do. They reached a junction. Smoke drifted from vents, alarms blaring overhead. Torth paused, listening. "They are splitting up," he said. "One group circles left, another comes from behind." "So we're the filling in a very ugly sandwich," Reynolds muttered. Torth's jaw tightened. "We must reach the maintenance tunnels." "Where are those?" Torth pointed, down. They found a hatch behind a row of lockers. Torth ripped it open with brute force, revealing a narrow shaft leading into darkness. "You first," he said. Reynolds peered into the shaft. It smelled of oil and dust. "Great. Broken leg, tiny ladder. This'll go well." "Move," Torth urged. Reynolds swung his good leg down, gripping the rungs. Pain lanced through his fracture, but he forced himself down, one rung at a time, teeth clenched. Sweat dripped down his forehead. Above, Torth covered him, firing short bursts at the intruders as they stormed into the corridor. Blue bolts lit the walls, scorching metal. Sparks rained down. "Hurry," Torth growled. "I'm not exactly sprinting here," Reynolds snapped, hauling himself down another rung. At last, he dropped into the maintenance tunnel. The air was damp, metallic, filled with the hum of power conduits. A moment later, Torth landed heavily beside him, the hatch slamming shut above. The tunnel stretched into darkness. "Now what?" Reynolds asked. Torth's eyes gleamed. "Now we vanish." For hours, they crawled through the tunnels. The sound of boots and metallic voices echoed distantly above, searching. Reynolds' leg throbbed with every movement. His arms ached from dragging himself forward, but he refused to stop, refused to give whoever was hunting him the satisfaction of capture. At last, they emerged into a storage bay. Stacks of crates lined the walls, marked with the Academy's supply codes. Emergency lights cast the room in a faint red glow. Reynolds collapsed against a crate, panting. "We can't keep running like this. They'll sweep the whole Academy eventually." Torth nodded grimly. "Then we stop running." Reynolds gave a short, bitter laugh. "You've noticed the whole broken leg thing, right?" "You still have hands," Torth said, "and a mind. Use them." Reynolds looked around. Crates, tools, spare drone parts, wiring. His gaze lingered on a container marked nutrient processors, fragile. Slowly, an idea formed. Half an hour later, the storage bay smelled of ozone and melted circuits. Reynolds sat on the floor, sweat dripping, hands blackened with grime, surrounded by half-disassembled drone parts. Wires twisted together in messy bundles. A jury-rigged device hummed faintly at his feet. Torth watched, skeptical. "This will work." Reynolds tightened one last connection. "If I didn't cross the wires, yeah." "What is it?" "An improvised flashbang. Sort of. When they open that door, they'll get a face full of nutrient processor coolant mixed with high-voltage discharge." Torth tilted his head. "That sounds unstable." Reynolds grinned. "Welcome to human engineering." The footsteps came sooner than expected, boots thudding, voices barking. The storage bay door shuddered as someone tried the controls. Reynolds swallowed hard. His heart pounded so loudly he thought they'd hear it. "Get ready," he whispered. The door hissed, smoke poured in. The intruders stepped forward. Reynolds triggered the device. The world exploded in white light and shrieking noise. A blast of coolant vapor shot outward, coating the intruders in icy mist as electricity arced across their armor. Sparks flew. Shouts turned to cries of pain. Torth roared and charged, slamming into the stunned attackers. His massive fists crashed down like hammers, sending one intruder sprawling. Another collapsed, weapons skittering across the floor. Reynolds grabbed it, teeth clenched against the pain in his leg, and leveled the weapon shakily at the third. "Drop it," he said, voice shaking. The intruder hesitated, then lunged. Reynolds fired. Blue light flared. The intruder hit the wall and slid down, smoking. Reynolds stared at the weapon in his hands, chest heaving. "Well, guess I'm a soldier now." The remaining intruders retreated, dragging their stunned comrades. The storage bay fell silent except for the crackle of sparks and Reynolds' ragged breathing. He looked at Torth. "We just picked a fight with someone way above our pay grade." "Yes," Torth rumbled, "and they will not stop." Reynolds sat back against a crate, his casted leg throbbing, his hands still trembling around the weapon. "Then we'd better figure out who they are." The message lingered on the flickering console. "Cadet Reynolds, we know what you are. Surrender or the Academy burns." Reynolds stared at it, chest tight, fingers clenching the rifle he had no business holding. The words crawled under his skin like ice. "Great," he muttered. "I've officially made it to the top of somebody's hit list." Torth loomed over the console, his heavy jaw set. "They will strike again. This was only the opening move." "Yeah," Reynolds said, rubbing his face. "And apparently I'm the prize." The Academy went into lockdown within the hour. Emergency shutters sealed the atrium. Barricades deployed across hallways. Security drones patrolled in tighter formation, their optics scanning for intruders. Announcements echoed through the intercoms. All cadets remain in dormitories. Security protocols engaged. Non-essential movement prohibited. But fear moved faster than safety notices. Rumors tore through the dorms. The intruders were mercenaries hired by rival academies. They were extremist factions demanding the expulsion of predators. They were government agents, using Reynolds as a test case for reclassification politics. Whatever the truth, one fact spread quickly: the attackers wanted the human. Reynolds sat in his dorm, leg aching, weapon resting against the wall. The cast itched. His stomach churned. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a spy. He was a student who'd wanted to study xenobiology, who'd broken his leg in a stupid rugby game, who'd eaten marrow because his doctor told him to. And now, because of that, the academy was under siege. His comm unit buzzed. It was Dr. Lorsch, the academy's human physiologist. Her face appeared on the screen, sharp and tired. Reynolds, you need to understand something. The intruders aren't random. They're testing the academy's resolve. If you fall into their hands, they'll use you to rewrite the narrative about humanity. Reynolds swallowed. And what narrative is that? That you're weak, that humans lied about being harmless herbivores, that your kind are predators in disguise. Reynolds laughed bitterly. So I'm the poster boy for either soft idiot or dangerous predator. No middle ground. Lorsch's eyes softened. You're human, which means you're adaptable. That's your strength, don't forget it. The call cut. That night the whispers returned. Cadets crept into his dorm in twos and threes, not the hostile ones, the curious, the uncertain, the afraid. A Gandhari first year, trembling, asked, Is it true you can heal without regeneration gel? Yes, Reynolds said, just slower hurts more. A Chalari medic asked, Is it true you eat marrow to make bones stronger? Reynolds shrugged, Doctor's orders works for us. An Amari twin lingered at the door, bioluminescence flickering nervously. She whispered, Are you dangerous? Reynolds looked at her for a long time. Then he said quietly, Only if I have to be. By morning, the academy was split. Half the cadets whispered predator, the other half whispered protector. And then the power failed. The lights died, the drones froze, emergency systems sputtered. The academy shuddered as if something massive had latched onto its hull. Alarms screamed. Reynolds limped to the window. Beyond the shields, through the pale glow of the atmosphere, he saw them. A ship, black, angular, bristling with weapons, docked directly against the academy's outer wall. They're not done with us, he muttered. Torth appeared at his side, eyes narrowing. They mean to take you by force. Chaos erupted. The intruders poured in through breached airlocks. Armored, armed, efficient. They moved in squads, sweeping through corridors, stunning anyone who resisted. The academy's defenses held for minutes, then crumbled. Reynolds and Torth found themselves in the medbay, surrounded by wounded cadets. Fex, the Chalari medic, worked furiously, her four hands a blur as she sealed wounds and stabilized fractures. You shouldn't be here, she snapped at Reynolds. Where else am I gonna go? They're literally here for me. She shot him a sharp look. Then don't let them find you. Reynolds leaned against a wall, heart pounding. Around him, cadets whimpered, drones sparked, alarms wailed. His eyes fell on a rack of supplies, composite braces, nutrient packs, surgical tools. An idea flickered, reckless, desperate, human. He grabbed a tray of nutrient packs, shoved them into his bag, and tore strips from unused braces. Torth frowned. What are you doing? Improvising, Reynolds said. Within minutes, he had fashioned makeshift tripwires across the medbay entrance, tying brace strips to nutrient packs filled with reactive gel. He taped a surgical cauterizer to his crutch like a spearhead. Torth watched, incredulous. This is madness. This is human engineering, Reynolds corrected. Ugly, dangerous, but it works. The intruders arrived minutes later. The first stepped through the medbay door and triggered the tripwire. The nutrient pack exploded in a spray of sticky gel, coating armor, clogging vents. The intruder staggered, slipping, as Reynolds lunged with his jury-rigged crutch spear. The cauterizer flared. The intruder screamed as the heated edge seared into exposed plating. Torth roared, barreling forward, fist smashing another attacker against the wall. The medbay filled with chaos, smoke, shouts, the clang of fists against armor. Reynolds fought clumsily, desperately. Every movement jolted pain through his leg. Every strike was fueled by adrenaline and sheer refusal to quit. And somehow, impossibly, it worked. The intruders fell back, dragging their wounded. The medbay held, for now. Afterward, Reynolds collapsed onto a cot, chest heaving, hands trembling. His makeshift spear clattered to the floor. Cadets stared at him, not with fear, but something else. Respect. You fought them, whispered the Gandhari first year. With one leg. Reynolds wiped sweat from his brow. With duct tape and soup packets technically, but yeah. Torth rumbled, lowering himself beside him. You adapt, even wounded, even cornered, you find a way. Reynolds gave a weak smile. That's what humans do. But their moment of relief was short-lived. The comm system crackled to life, hijacked. A distorted voice filled the medbay, echoing through every corridor of the academy. Attention, cadets, we hold the command deck. Your leaders are subdued. The academy is ours. Hand over the human and no further harm will come to you. Gasps rippled through the room. Reynolds felt his stomach drop. They had taken the command deck. And now the choice was in everyone else's hands. The hijacked broadcast echoed through the academy. Hand over the human, and no further harm will come to you. The words rattled Reynolds' bones more than his fracture ever had. Around him, the medbay fell silent. Dozens of cadets stared at him, whispers flickering like sparks. If we give him up, the fighting stops. He saw it in their eyes, fear, doubt, calculation. Reynolds swallowed hard, his cast itched, his ribs ached. His whole body screamed to give in, to let them take him, to end this nightmare. But something else, deeper, older, rose in his chest. The part of humanity that never yielded, even when it hurt. He pushed himself upright on his crutch. Listen up. Voices hushed. Even Fex, the Chalari medic, paused with her hands over a bandage. Reynolds' voice shook at first, but steadied as he went on. You all think I'm the problem, that if you hand me over, they'll walk away. But you've seen them. You know what they are. They won't stop at me. They'll take this academy. They'll break it. And they'll use me as proof that humans are monsters. He swept his gaze across the room, locking eyes with anyone who dared meet his. I'm not asking you to fight for me. I'm asking you to fight for yourselves. Because if they can walk in here and take one student hostage, then none of us are safe. Silence followed. Then slowly Torth rumbled from the back. He speaks truth. One by one, heads nodded. The fear didn't vanish, but it hardened, transformed. The cadets were ready to fight. The plan was reckless, dangerous, human. Reynolds spread a rough schematic across a medbay cot, the academy's layout sketched from memory and guesses. Red XS marked the breached areas. A circle marked the command deck. They've cut power and seized control, Reynolds said. But they don't know the tunnels as well as we do. We move in small groups, hit them from below, force them into choke points. A Chalari cadet raised a trembling hand. And what about you? Reynolds managed a crooked smile. Me, I'm bait. They moved at once. Cadets slipped through tunnels, carrying improvised weapons, repurposed drone parts, sharpened tools, nutrient packs rigged as explosives. Torth led the largest group, his bulk a battering ram. Reynolds moved slower, crutch under one arm, rifle under the other. His leg throbbed, but he forced it forward. Every step was a reminder, fragile, yes, weak, no. The intruders didn't expect resistance. The first ambush came in Corridor 7. A squad marched confidently, only to be met with a spray of coolant packs and a roaring Jalari fist. The cadets swarmed, clumsy but furious, overwhelming the stunned attackers. Another strike hit them in the cargo bay, where nutrient hoses ruptured under a Gandhari's improvised spark charge, drenching intruders in sticky protein gel. They slipped, stumbled, and fell beneath a storm of cadet fists and claws. For the first time, the tide turned. But the command deck was another matter. Reynolds and Torth reached the outer corridor, breathless, bruised, weapons low on charge. Ahead, armored figures stood guard, their rifles glowing, their stance disciplined. They'll kill us before we get near, Torth muttered. Reynolds' mind raced. His gaze darted to the walls, pipes, panels, conduits. His brain clicked into gear. Not if we make them look the wrong way. He slung his rifle, tore open a wall panel, and jammed wires together. Sparks flew. Alarms shrieked. A fire suppression system roared to life, flooding the corridor with choking foam. The intruders spun toward the noise. Now, Reynolds shouted. Torth roared and charged through the foam, smashing one guard into another. Reynolds limped after him, coughing, swinging his crutch like a club. They burst into the command deck. The intruder leader waited. Taller than the rest, his armor gleamed with sigils. His helmet hissed as he turned, green slits burning. Behind him, academy staff were bound, their eyes wide with fear. So, the leader rasped, "The predator comes to us." Reynolds leaned on his crutch, chest heaving. I'm a biology student with a broken leg. If that's your definition of predator, you really need to raise your standards. The leader tilted his head. You shattered the illusion. They thought you soft, harmless. Now they see what you are. That cannot be allowed. Reynolds gave a bitter laugh. What I am? Hungry, tired, injured, and really sick of this conversation. The leader raised his weapon. Then die as a warning. The shot never landed. Torth slammed into the leader from the side, claws scraping against armor. The two titans crashed into consoles, sparks flying. The leader swung a blade, slicing deep into Torth's shoulder. The Jelari roared in pain but held on, grappling the armored figure. Reynolds saw the weapon tumble to the floor. Without thinking, he hobbled forward, dropped his crutch, and grabbed it. His arms shook with the weight. The leader wrenched free, slamming Torth to the ground. He turned just as Reynolds raised the weapon. The room froze. You think you're a predator? The leader sneered. Reynolds' voice was steady, cold. No, I'm human, we're worse. He pulled the trigger. The blast hit square. Armor shattered. The leader fell, smoking, the green slits flickering once before going dark. The silence that followed was deafening. Bound staff gasped. Cadets stared. Torth groaned, clutching his bleeding shoulder. Reynolds dropped the weapon, breath ragged, and leaned heavily against the console. His legs screamed. His whole body screamed, but he was still standing. And the academy was theirs again. The aftermath was messy. Intruders were dragged away, disarmed, unmasked. They weren't extremists or rival cadets. They were mercenaries hired by an unknown faction. Their orders were simple: seize the academy, capture the human. The ethics board launched inquiries. The coalition sent investigators. Whispers spread across the galaxy. The human fought back. The human improvised. The human broke their leader. Weeks later, Reynolds walked without crutches into the cafeteria. His leg still ached, but it was whole. Conversations dipped as he entered, then rose again, less suspicious, more respectful. A new section had been added to the food replicator. Earth omnivore options. Roasted marrow bones, icon, bone with sunglasses. Lentil stew note, rich in protein, conscience-friendly. Reynolds groaned, great, I'm a menu item. Torth rumbled beside him, shoulder scarred but healed. You are more than that, you are proof. Proof of what? That humans are not soft herbivores, not predators, something else. Reynolds smiled faintly. Adaptive omnivores, generalist subclass. Torth nodded, and dangerous when cornered. The semester ended with quiet departures. Shuttles lifted away, cadets returning to homeworlds with new stories. Reynolds stood at the dock, bag slung over his shoulder, legs stiff but steady. Torth was beside him, holding a thermal container labeled Earth Stew, Batch 12. You're not staying? Torth asked. Got reassigned. Human Studies program wants me at the Jandari Research Hub. Apparently I'm a liaison now. Torth tilted his head. The cafeteria will be quieter without you. Reynolds smirked. You literally rumble when you sit down, you'll manage. The boarding chime rang. Reynolds shifted his bag, then paused. Hey, if you ever make it to Earth, I'll take you to a place that does bone broth so good it makes grown men cry. Torth blinked. What else do humans put inside bones? Reynolds grinned. Sometimes cheese. The Jelari's eyes widened. You are making that up. Come visit and find out. As the shuttle lifted, Reynolds watched the academy shrink behind him. He hadn't meant to change anything. He hadn't wanted to, but he had. Not with strength, not with claws or fangs. With marrow, with stubbornness, with humor, with the unshakable determination to keep going. The galaxy would remember the bone marrow incident. And humanity would never be underestimated again. Epilogue. In a quiet coalition office, the species classification database blinked with a new entry. Homo sapiens. Status, adaptive omnivore subclass. Traits, slow healing, high pain tolerance, extreme adaptability. Notes, do not assume fragility, capable of unpredictable solutions under stress. Special advisory, if offered food, clarify contents before consumption.